Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Unleashed with Shuraim. Today we have an amazing guest. He's none other than Dr. Shamsuddeen Usman, the former Minister of Finance and also the former Minister of National Planning. And before all this, he was also the Deputy Governor of Central Bank. Doctor, good to have you. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Shuraim. It's my pleasure
I am
to be
so
here.
excited to meet you finally. And I must tell you that last year we wanted to have a summit, and the summit was about business. And I was thinking, will I be able to speak to you to come for the summit? Are you easily accessible? Are you easily reachable? And I was like, nah, you're going to be a big shot that I can't speak to now. So I didn't even reach out then. But subhanAllah, having interactions with you, I've seen how humane you are and how simple you are and how easygoing you are and the likes of it. So may Allah continue to bless you and preserve you, mashallah.
Amin, Shuraim. Thank you very much. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I attended your book, your book celebration, whereby it was really amazing. And for me, I've gone through like a lot of book conferences and people who have written books and they want to launch it and the likes of it. And I've seen how the entire process goes. I've also written forward for so many books, but your book was so different for me in terms of the structure, in terms of how it went, in terms of the writing, in terms of even the graphics, and even the event. When I came, it was as if we were having an event in the US. It was so straightforward and everything, and like so. But before we go into our conversation, into your book today, let me take you on a journey lane back to your young days. You lost your dad when you were 4 years old. I lost mine when I was 6 years old. So yeah, it was a bit of rough, and it's still rough for me at the same time. But we asked Allah to make it easy. Now, my first question was, at that point, if you can take a trip back, because during your speech, you made a lot of gratitude to your mother. May Allah have mercy on her soul, to your dad as well. Take me on a journey lane. At that point, how was life for you, and what advice do you have for people like myself who are young people without parents as well?
Well, to be honest with you, initially losing my father, I was just 4 years old.
Yeah.
It didn't, in fact, on the morning that we woke up to hear, I saw older people crying. And I had to ask, what's happening? They said, Baba is dead. And it didn't hit me that well. It's a large family with 3 wives, several children.
Right.
So as children, we were quite, because I saw somebody cry, all of them crying, I grew up not being able to cry much, I can remember, I can count for you the number of times that I've cried. Amazing. And on that occasion, it didn't really sink in on me, but when I saw everybody, I then put this thing in my ear so that, everybody will also see that I'm crying. But I think soon after, that it hit me in several ways. One of them is, first of all, because he was not around, and my senior brothers, some were in school, 1 or 2 of them were working outside Kano. Even taking us to school. Everybody in my family went to school, both Islamic education, very important, right from home. Yes. We had a teacher at home, we went to Islamic school, but Western education was also something that was valued in my family. So my junior brother and I, we had come of age. At that time, you entered school at 7. All this nursery and this didn't exist. You just went straight to primary school. So it was an uncle who came and met us playing just about, in fact, school enrollment for that year had ended. So he said, have these children been taken to school? Have they been registered? And our mother said, no. He said, So he actually organized for us to be taken to the house of the headmaster at that time, right, and begged him that, look, that these 2 children, we missed the registration. And the headmaster was kind enough at that time to say, okay, bring them on the day the school opens. So that's how we almost missed school. It would have been another year perhaps before. But alhamdulillah, we got registered. And then the struggle began. of which I told during the book launch, of, struggling to meet the requirements of school, even money for breakfast. Sometimes, you remember, here on that occasion, I cried because as soon as I tried to remember the look on my mother's eye, on occasions that she didn't have the 3 pence, you can almost say 3 kobo, that was enough for me to have breakfast in school at that time. All she would do is the pain in her eyes, looking at me and saying, don't worry, go to school. When you come back, I hope we'll have something to eat. Sometimes she would send for pap and akara, and I know that she needed it herself. She would just take a sip or two and one akara and then push it towards me and say, okay, you go ahead and have it. And unfortunately, as I said, as you see, in terms of the acknowledgements in the book or dedication.
Yeah, I like how you did it in the tree format.
Exactly. I said, I regret, but that is Allah's will, that she did not live long enough to actually see me mature and blossom. So really, but I think that also helped. That difficult bringing up or growing up helped to give me focus. Because right from, I walked to school barefoot, like I told President Jonathan yesterday, who was chairing. He popularized this issue of walking to school without shoes. And I told him some of us walked to school without shoes before him. So I remember those difficult days. In fact, going to school in some parts of Kano was not very popular at that time. You're talking of 1956.
Wow.
And so we would be on our way to school walking, and some of the other children whose parents did not believe in education would be playing and clapping and saying, do you that are going to Boko school, you are going to hell.
Yes, well,
I mean, that's their perception.
Yes.
That you will end up in hell. And unfortunately, with the benefit of hindsight, as Allah wills, some of those same people later in life, the deep regret that they had, who are of our age, that they didn't actually go to school. Because they saw the difference that going to school can make.
Absolutely.
In us, all of those us that went to school, there was a huge difference between us and them in terms of even attitude to life, knowledge, being able to, even if it is business they were doing, there was a difference between those who went to school and those who didn't. And in those days, everything was available. Support provided by, in fact, Ankano at that time, it was the native authority that was responsible for providing education, health, and basic infrastructure, including health inspectors that would go house by house, checking has the drainage been cleaned, is the toilets clean, in order to avoid health problems. So prevention, rather than waiting until there is what we do today, until there is a crisis or there is infection all over, and then you start panicking. So I think for me, really that growing up period, and then subsequently after primary school, I went to Kefi Government College, and one of the things again about it is the fact that it's merit that drove everything. It didn't matter who your parents were. If you sat for exams and did well, you got selected to go to the next level. If you didn't do well, you got dropped. So again, there were consequences for non-performance.
The system were working.
The system was working. There was a laboratory and a hospital. Actually, it was a clinic that served all schools at that time. There were not as many primary schools as you had today.
Right.
It was a native authority. If you went with malaria, for example, they will not treat you until they have taken your blood sample, checked, and confirmed that it is malaria.
Now we do self-treatment.
Now people do self-treatment, you know. So those things you know, it really is. And for me, one of the motivations for writing the book is also to tell Nigerians that there was a time when Nigeria was working. For example, when I took the exams, I mean, we had dedicated teachers in primary school. And what they did for us, 6 months, they gave us coaching lessons. In the evenings, after school, we came back, and for 6 months, they were drilling us and grilling us. And we set a record that year. 18 of us, in a class of, say, 60, 18 of us passed the entrance to government colleges at that time, which were the top-notch schools in the north. Government College Kefi, Government College Kaduna, and Government College Zaria, which became Barewa College. 18 of us from the same set in one school got, and based purely on our results. Not, it didn't matter who your parents were, you know. And then in Kefi, it was the same thing. In fact, when we were attending Kefi Government College, there were the son, at one time, there was the son of the late Prime Minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa.
Amazing.
Sons of permanent secretaries that were there, but they were not given any special treatment. If they misbehaved, they were punished like everybody else.
Wow.
You know, so again.
That is beautiful, because now schools have been separated and so many things have happened, and there's the elitist movement, and if you're not on a certain level, you can't be in a certain place and the likes of it.
Exactly.
That's really amazing. I resonate so much with what you say about your father and about your parents. And when you spoke about it during the book launch, and I was watching you, personally at that point I shedded tears as well. And you saying right now that it made you focus, and you know, to the level that you're in now, because I've never had anyone who spoke from that perspective. So as a young person growing up, I always felt that, oh, my dad is, I don't have a father, look at me doing this myself, look at me going to these places, going and pay for school myself and everything, and doing everything. So when you say that, that gave me so much hope and so much comfort, and I felt, okay, fine, if you can scale through to the stage that you are now, then it is a chance for me, and inshallah for everyone who is watching this program at the moment. Now let me go back to where you wanted to go to school. Something remarkable I saw when I was doing the research about you. You were supposed to go to University of Ibadan, and then you went straight to Ahmadu Bello University. I think there was a friend that changed your mind. How was that scenario, and what can you say about the importance of having good people around you?
Well, before even that, I think the lesson, like you and I that lost parents, is sometimes, in fact, parents spoil their children deliberately. And they don't know. They overindulge them. And that overindulgence can actually come to harm the children later. So I think, first of all, this should be a warning. Sometimes deprivation, you know, okay, if you have means, even Islam says if you have the means, you know, take care of your family. It's part of the duty. But don't overindulge. Because overindulgence, and I remember sometimes walking to school and seeing all the, at that time really, materially, there wasn't much the kind of gap that we have. There were a few people that were rich. You know, in Kano you had the Dantatas, you had the Dangotes, and so on. But we went to school with their own children. You know, public schools were the in thing at that time. My classmates, you know, included the Dantatas family. The late wife of Alhaji Amin Dantata was my classmate in primary school, you know. So everybody went to the public school, and I think because of that, the public school itself was made good. Today you have all these, I mean, the problems we are creating in society are huge between the haves and have-nots. You know, coming back to your question, after King's College, after A-levels, you know, in those days there was no JAMB. You applied to as many universities as you wanted.
Right.
So I applied to Ibadan, I applied to ABU. Ibadan at that time, it was the primary university, and having done A-levels in Lagos, obviously one was attracted to go to Ibadan.
Right.
Last minute, you know, so Ibadan actually took me to do economics. ABU admitted me to do economics. But I had a very close friend with whom we went to King's College also. Late Dr. Saad Usman, the Emma of Jerry.
May Allah have mercy.
May Allah have mercy on him. He also applied to Ibadan for economics, and he applied to ABU for economics. To be honest with you, I didn't even know economics at that time. I asked him, what are you applying for? He said, economics. I didn't know it. I said, okay, if you are applying for economics, I will also apply for economics. Now, Ibadan admitted me for economics, ABU admitted me for economics. But in his own case, Ibadan admitted him for French, because we were both doing French as well. And ABU admitted him for economics, because he was so sold on studying economics. I got his letter, and we didn't have GSM those days. Yes. A letter would take, from Kaduna to Kano, probably a week sometimes. But last minute, I got his letter that said, Ibadan only admitted me for French, but I'm going to ABU. I had already paid my deposit for Ibadan, ready to go, When I saw it, because I don't know, we were so close, I just said, I rushed to Zaria physically and paid for my deposit in order to get registered. So that's how I changed my mind at that time.
That is really remarkable.
Yes.
So coming back to your book, Public Policy and Agent Interest. Now, when I saw the title, I was like, wow, the author of this book, for him to write public policy and agent interest, what experience has he gone through? Because in Nigeria, everybody is scared to talk. Everybody is scared to write their experiences. Nobody wants a lot of problems, right? So I was thinking, okay, fine, let me make a little bit of research about you personally. And I realized that you're the first minister to publicly announce your asset. After the president, may he so rest in peace, President Yaradua did, talk about that. So for me, I was wondering, okay, fine, you might have, and you were a 2-time minister. And when I went to the chapter, there are a lot of chapters, about 12 chapters, and you wrote about 4 chapters in the book. And the first chapter you wrote about was talking about how you were called to come and serve. And when they called you, you're not even a politician then. You didn't even understand that there was a need for you to go get a party card at that moment, right? So with all this and the likes of it, I see some of the motivation from there, right? But you tell me, what was the motivating factor behind writing this book at this time? Because you also mentioned during the book launch that, you would have chosen to write the book since before now. But you felt that what was the point of you just exposing people? And that was really deep for me, because we live in a generation whereby people just want to bash people, and then it goes on Instagram, goes on Twitter, just the way you say, and then it makes a bit of raw, and then you make haters, and then after a few months, it's gone. But it made so much sense to me that there was sincerity of purpose in the fact that there was a need for you to write the book, and that's why you write at that particular time. Tell us your motivation and what led to this.
Thank you. Since I left office as Minister of National Plan in 2013, and actually long before that, I had, even when I was in office, right from Central Bank, MDO of a bank in Lagos and so on, I wanted to write. I was very good with English literature.
Right.
It was one of the subjects I studied for my A-levels. I wanted to write about me. So initially, my thought was, especially after I had been Deputy Governor in the Central Bank, Minister of Finance, initially my thing is write an expose and reveal all the shenanigans, the political intrigues, the, budget padding and constituency projects of the national. And then I reflected and said, okay, first of all, it was even going to be very dangerous if you do that kind of thing. Not only will you make more enemies, but some of them may actually be gunning out for you. So it's very risky. And with time, I now realize that, okay, even if you did that, what's the point? It doesn't help. Like you said, you'll be in various social media, generate a lot of controversy, and it will die down, especially today in an information age, where people, their attention span is very short. So I said, first of all, I was not going to write that. If I wrote, it was going to be something serious. Now, the clincher for me was a sermon, khutbah, that Dr. Khalid Aliu Abubakar delivered at the Al-Nur Mosque several years ago, about 3 years ago. That khutbah hit me very well, a sermon, because what he was saying is that it is the duty of every Muslim that has been in a position of authority, that has some lessons to teach not only Muslim but other people, to document that experience for the benefit of humanity and posterity. And he referred to several authorities. For example, he started by saying, look at the Quran itself. It's a book. The Quran is a book. So, and it is the supreme book for the world.
Absolutely.
So that Allah is even showing us that a book, documentation as a guide. We also know as Muslims that each person has one angel on his left side, one on his right side, documenting whatever we do.
Absolutely.
And on the day of judgment, they are going to produce your book, each person, and put it before Allah for judgment. So again, documentation and a book. Then you looked at Islamic scholarship, where Muslims are encouraged to imbibe the culture of writing and documentation for a number of reasons. One is to preserve knowledge. The second is to document history. The third is to document culture. And the fourth is to keep records. And then finally, to teach values.
Absolutely.
And since, my focus is really to impart all of this, I then felt when he gave that sermon, and I think, in fact, Imams, when they are doing their khutbah, they refer to the Quran, but they also refer to hadith and other authorities.
Absolutely.
He referred to a gentleman called Imam al-Zarnuji,
Yes.
Whose book was Ta'limul Muta'allam. And he said that the Imam said something. For those who understand, he said, Ma kutiba qarra wa ma hufisa farra. That means literally, what is documented remains forever. And what is memorized fades away.
Absolutely.
Ultimately. So documentation is very important. And then look at all the prophetic hadiths. It is because they were documented.
That's why we have access.
That's why we have them today.
Absolutely.
If they had not been documented, there would be, there is still some dispute about some hadiths that were not properly documented. But because most of them were documented, today we can say these are genuine hadiths and these are not genuine hadiths. So when he finished that khutbah, it really hit me very well. And I said, then I have to really go back to my idea of writing a book. And I went up to him after the prayer and said, Imam, thank you very much with this your khutbah. It hit me very well. It has made an impact on me. And inshallah, I'm going to start writing my own, document my experience for the benefit of future generations. And I said to him, inshallah, whenever this book is finished, I will invite you to say the opening prayer.
Subhanallah.
And alhamdulillah, 2 days ago when we launched the book,
He made the opening prayer.
he gave the opening prayer. So I thank Allah. So coming back to your point also about what is the message of the book. I think the message of the book, first of all, is to show, and it's just by pure coincidence that it coincided with my 75th year anniversary.
MashaAllah.
From our part of the country, we don't really celebrate birthdays. For example, on the actual birthday itself, which was the 18th of this month, all I got was some prayers from my family. With no party, nothing. We don't do those. But my children were planning behind my back to launch a foundation. Fortunately or unfortunately for them, one of them accidentally leaked he was talking to me and he didn't realize they had agreed to keep it secret. And when he mentioned it, I said, well, okay, I'm launching this book. Maybe it's better because doing two separate events, launch the book and then launch the foundation would have been too cumbersome on my acquaintances that we would have invited. So let's do it together. Now, the basic message of the book is that there's something called the agency problem in economics. And put briefly, is that public servants are supposed to be agents for public interest. Therefore, whatever they do in their official capacity is supposed to be in the interest of the public. Now, where in Nigeria you have a majority of public servants, politicians, other public holders, civil servants, public servants, majority of them are not acting in the interest of the public, but in their own interest. So the agency problem is that instead of being agents of the public, who are the principal, who are supposed to be the principal, there's a role reversal where they see themselves as the principal and the public are just, not to be. So as Dr. Nevin, who wrote chapter 1, deliberately I left him to, when you read chapter 1, you really get the importance of this agency problem, which is that the social contract between government and people in Nigeria is broken. In ordinary social contracts, what you expect is the individual pays his taxes and does his duty to the government, behaves as a good civil person, and then expects from government to take care of his security, his education, his health, his accommodation, and create an environment for him to thrive, whether he's a businessman or a doctor, an Islamic or Christian cleric, to create that environment. What is happening is, unfortunately, like when I was growing up as a young person, as I described, that social contract has broken. The government, this government is trying now to bring back taxes and so on, which is part of the social contract. But when you take taxes from people, then the government is obliged to provide services. So that social contract has broken down. And the question is why? And what we posited, virtually all the contributors, the theme running through all the 15 chapters of the book is that it is that breakdown or that personal selfish interest pursuit that has led to this situation where the agency problem is that instead of working for public interest, officials are working for their own selfish interest.
That is really amazing, subhanAllah. And during the launching of the book, the representative of Dangote that came, he was saying that in simple English for Brekete family, they would say public policy and corruption agent, if I can remember clearly. But before we go on to discuss about some of the things you've done in terms of social development, we're just going to take a short break and we'll be right back. All right, dear viewers, we've been discussing with Dr. Shamsuddeen Usman. He wrote an amazing book, and this book is called Public Policy and Agent Interest. I read the book personally, and it's really amazing. But if you want to know a lot about it, stay tuned with us, and we'll be right back. All right, viewers, welcome back. We've been discussing with Dr. Shamsuddeen Usman. Thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for being on the show till now. We're taking so much of your time.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You always speak about impact, and everywhere you go, you speak about impact. And I went to do a little bit of research on what you have done in terms of impact. I see you had brought to Kano, one of the microfinance banks. You also did a hospital in partnership with, Doctors Frontiers. I don't know what, I've forgotten the exact name they call them, but it's not an English word, basically. And I've seen you've done so much, and I am particularly interested so well in maternal death. I went to Maiduguri recently. I see the number of women dying on a daily basis, and I see how, unfortunately, we don't have those equipment to help them deliver them. And I've seen that, in your hospital, after the Aminu Kano Hospital, your hospital is the next in terms of the deliveries you have. And also, recently you spoke about something really amazing that struck me, where a young man met you in the airport, and he said that, do you remember him? And you say you don't remember him, and you say you paid his jump for him, and now he has a doctorate degree. Now, this is something that my generation now, we don't see these things easily. Rather, when you have a mentor, he doesn't want to unleash the innermost potential in you, right? Sometimes they just want to take you to the little step and then they leave you there. Tell me about, and before I ask the question, you were surprised that your kids did a foundation for you. That's amazing. Tell me, how has this journey been for you, and how do you feel whenever you help people around you?
I think, Shuraim, you remember our earlier discussion about the deprivations that I suffered as a child. Whenever I see people who are deprived, it hits me. And I say, okay, it's only by Allah's will that I was able to overcome this and become what I have become. And therefore, there's always an incentive in me. What can I do to assist those people? And for me, education is also a great enabler. When I grew up with my family, as I told you, education is something that was emphasized. Islamic education as a foundation and Western education. So as I grew up, again, remember I told you some of my age mates that didn't go to school.
Yeah.
Now, what I then did was to say, the children of those people, what can we do to assist them? So I was, right from when I was in Lagos in the banking industry, I started a number of projects. First of all, education, in my community in Kano, and said, okay, I discovered that there was a high rate of failure when it came to JAMB and WAEC. So the first program we designed was, I negotiated with a primary school, and we took about 10 classes and started weekend lessons, morning and evening, for boys and girls that were either in their final year of primary school, that getting ready to take the common entrance, and those who are also getting ready to take the WAEC. And we recruited teachers from the community, and then I was paying for the teachers, I was paying for chalk, I was doing this and that, So we started, and we're doing it for a number of years, and we began to see the results. Okay, a program also with that is, I said, look, anybody that needed to take JAMB and the parent is unable to pay for the cost of JAMB registration, I was ready to pay for them. But it had to be a means tested. They had to demonstrate to me that their parents really could not afford that. So you gave that example. There were several of them. I still meet them today. That particular individual that I mentioned is an associate professor now in Bayero University. I met him and he said, do you recognize me? I said, no, I don't. He said, under that program, you paid for my JAMB. And that's what made me proceed to higher education. And I'm now a PhD holder and an associate professor in Bayero University. I almost cried, to be honest with you, because the feeling that gives one is you assisted somebody to achieve their potential. So now we were doing that for a number of years, and then came one of these World Cup, not this current one, some years ago.
Yeah.
that, and then all the students were not coming to the extra lesson because they were there some in TV centers watching football. It happened to be that weekend that I actually went to Kano, and I said, let me go and check what is happening in this place. So we went around. We started with about 11 classes full of students. Then this time I went, there were just about 10 students in one class. And the teachers were all there that I was paying, they were there, some of them sitting around in the teacher's room and just chatting. So I said, what's happening? They say, oh, it's because of football match, otherwise they will be there, the ball. As I was leaving, one of the teachers followed me and said, Oga, let me tell you the truth. This program, you are just sending money for it. Over time, the attendance has deteriorated. People are not coming. And all you are doing is you send money for the payment of teachers, and everybody is pocketing it. So organizing things like this, a lot of challenges. But what we then did is, I met a lady who is vast. She's from Ondo State, who is vast in community development. By accidentally, we were sitting next to each other on a flight from London to Abuja. After some time, she introduced herself and said, what do you do? She said, community. I said, fantastic. I told her what I was doing in Kano. She laughed. She said, this is the mistake all of you elite make. You go and take money, you think you are able to organize people. Said, you have to start from basics. Get the community involved. Don't just come with solutions. Get them to understand what you are trying to do. Let them be part of the solution. So she came with her team to Kano. We had several weeks of discussion with the community. At the end of the day, we came out with an organization, community organization called Gidaunia Alheri. Essentially, it translates to Wellness Foundation. And we decided to focus on 3 areas: education, health, and entrepreneurship, developing people's skills. Now to say, there is not enough time to tell the whole story. One of the products of that in terms of entrepreneurship is the establishment of a microfinance bank, one of the first microfinance banks in Nigeria that is still thriving today. And the purpose is to help develop the banking habit, the saving habit, the entrepreneurial habit in the community, and it's there functioning. On the health sector, like you said, we started it on our own in 2014. So, 2004 we started, about 20 years ago. About 3 years ago, we were managing, the system was working, but about 3 years ago, we had the benefit of Médecins Sans Frontières, which is Doctors Without Borders, coming in as a partner. And since they came in, and we also had, it's actually an interesting concept that some of our privileged people in society may want to adopt. It's a tripartite arrangement. We had the Community Health Committee. We have the Médecins Sans Frontières as a foreign technical partner. And we have actually 4. We have the state government, Ministry of Health, and the local government health department. All put together, and we are running that place together. For example, the nurses were provided by the local government health department. That facility today is a community one, but we have not restricted it. People are coming from all over Kano to benefit from it. In terms of deliveries of babies, we are delivering between 250 to 300 babies a month in that facility, which is second only to Murtala Mohammed Hospital in the whole of Kano. That we are attending to people in all sorts of, in fact, on average, I think we do something like 2,500 patients a day.
Wow.
and we have a drugs revolving scheme where people actually, they pay a little bit for the drugs. Some of the drugs are free because under some government program or under the Medicine Sans Frontier, some drugs, for example, delivery, women come there from antenatal until they deliver. Everything is free.
Wow.
When in surrounding hospitals, people are paying 50 to 100,000 for delivery.
For less quality.
For less quality. So I think one is really fulfilled in that regard. You know, again, whenever I meet the first few babies delivered under that scheme, you know, the mothers on their own name the male children Shamsuddeen. Yes, so I don't know the number of Shamsuddin that you have, given the volume.
Absolutely.
That now I'm not saying this out of vanity. First, you ask for it because Islam does not want one to be vain or to try to. But it just shows what can be done if there is the will. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. You get a lot of disappointment from trying to help people. And that's the tragedy. You know, you get people who are fraudulent. You get people who will come and tell you one thing, but their intention is different. I've had lots and lots that I don't want to even recount or remember. But at the end of the day, you look at the success of it and the people whose lives you've been able to transform. And that is really more satisfying than anything.
Subhanallah. Yes. Thank you so much for that answer. You know, in Islam, we try as much as possible when a person does something good, we try to bring it out so that other people can see and learn from it. Just like what Sheikh Khalid said, you know, these are things that we want to bring out so that people can say, oh, if you can do it this way, I can also involve myself and do it, you know, in such way and like so. May Allah continue to bless you and make life easy for you.
Ameen.
As a two-time minister, as the first minister who publicly announced his asset, and as Sanusi Lamido Sanusi Emir of Kano said, you know, EFCC has never invited you over for any conversation. What advice do you have for the current ministers now?
I think for the current ministers is probably, the first part of the advice is probably too late. But the second part is relevant. And not only current ministers, but future ministers. My Minister of State at that time, Mr. Remi Babalola, Minister of State Finance, and I was the main Minister for Finance, we were talking. At that time, President Aradua, may Allah bless his soul, had publicly declared his assets on assuming office. So we said, look, our boss, the president is our boss. If he has declared his assets, what excuse do we have also that we will not? We had done the declaration with the relevant authority and so on. But let's make it public so as to act as an example to others. So we actually sent out our asset declaration form to the press, and it was published in several media houses. And our intention was, okay, we've done it. As we were living as ministers, we would also do the same thing. So, like I said, advice to current ministers is that none of them has done it. And in fact, up till today, only 2 of us are on record as having done that. But the advice to current and future ministers is what I say to people: there is life after public office. Try and be as honest, as dutiful as you can. You know, at that time, I used to warn some of my colleagues when I saw them the way they were going, that take it easy. Take it easy. The oath of office that you swear as a minister or for many other public appointments in Nigeria, I don't know who designed that oath of office. But whatever your religion, even if you have no religion, whether you are Muslim, Christian, if you swear to that kind of oath that says, I will not steal public funds, I will not be unfair according to religion, tribe, and this and that. I will be essentially work for the public interest. It's such a very, very comprehensive and tight oath that if you reflect, just you are God alone, say, I've sworn to this oath, then you need to be careful because there's accountability. If not to Nigerians, if not to people, there's accountability to God at the end of the day. And you actually take that oath holding the Quran or the Bible, which makes it even more binding. So my advice is honestly, and it's not popular these days, given the level of, unfortunately, corruption and other things that happen in the country. One sounds almost anachronistic, given this kind of advice. But from my experience, it has worked. In every office, I've been MD of a bank. We started the privatization program under TCPC. We had a code of conduct that time where, we pledged that we were not going to buy any of the assets or shares that we were selling. And we didn't, none of us, either the staff or the members of the committee. So with that kind of experience, it was not difficult for me when I came to government to say, I will try and be as honest as I can, hoping that I'll come out clean and hoping that that will be a foundation for my subsequent life. And it has been. Since I left office, if you see the number of offers of boards appointments that I've had, people just saying, we need you on our board. First of all, because of your experience. And secondly, because they have done their homework. They've checked. And there's no hint of any malfeasance about me. I remember, in fact, when I was having problem with the National Assembly, and the leadership went to President Yar'Adua and said, you must remove Shamsuddeen as a minister. I put it in the book as well. Yes. President Yar'Adua said to them at that time, if you bring any evidence of malfeasance by Shamsuddin, I'll remove him today.
And they were from the north.
Yes. Well, it's a mixture. It's a mixture. But when the pressure, when the pressure got too much, he had to move me from finance to national planning, which turned out to be a blessing for me because, again, I went and proved myself that for me, it's not a question of what people put, a lucrative ministry. I mean, imagine people even talking about one ministry being more lucrative than another. You are not there to look at lucrativeness. You are there to serve the people.
That is amazing.
Yes.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We are short of time. I want to have a long conversation. And I wanted to ask you about your experience when you were going to do pro bono in the universities and the likes of it. But hopefully, if you give us the opportunity to have a second episode with you, inshallah, we'll look for that, inshallah. Thank you so much for coming on the program. And may Allah bless this book, Public Policy and Agent of Interest. And we look forward to learning from it. And this is a service you've done for young people like myself. I must tell you, our generation is not like your generation where we don't have mentors. We basically are just growing on our own. So if you don't have a father, you're on your own. You're just growing. So thank you so much. May Allah continue to bless you, and may Allah continue to grant you long life and good health.
Thank you, Shuraim, and our viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, there, viewers, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end. You need to get the book, learn it, but when you read the book, also read the book with sincerity of purpose. It's going to go a long way for you. And subhanAllah, if you're in the leadership, and just like what Doctor said, understand that what you've taken is not for granted. You're going to be held responsible. Even if you're not caught here in the dunya, in the akhirah, when you stand in the front of the one that has made you in the best of ways and giving you everything for free and the opportunity to even hold a position, would ask you. Until the next episode, I'll leave you all the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum.